Winchester is the totally historically accurate story about Sarah Winchester and her horror story with ghosts. Ghosts are real, she sees them, everyone thought she was crazy, but nope, they was ghosts, and this is totally true. Totally not made up, totally not insulting to the actual Sarah Winchester, totally not making fun of her disease. Ghosts were real, and they sent Jason Clarke to go investigate her because she's crazy, but she wasn't crazy the whole time. Ghosts are real, folks! When I saw the trailer for this movie, I was slightly a little interested because Helen Mirren is in it and Jason Clarke, and this movie is directed by two guys who recently did Jigsaw, which not a big fan of, but that's also just another Saw film, so you can't really blame them too much. They also directed two other films that I think got positive reviews, so I was interested to see what they could do with this film, which isn't a Saw film, something that they could completely make their own. And considering it was about Sarah Winchester, I thought there was going to be more of a psychological kind of biography. But as soon as the first trailer kind of kept going and it got to that end scare, I was like, oh, so this is just straight up horror film, isn't it? Okay, maybe you can make it good at least. And they really didn't. This movie is as generic as horror films get. In fact, this movie completely belongs in January. I know a lot of people have said that already, but it's so true. This movie, I guess you could say it's the Rings of this year, because Rings was a February release, and I think some people even said, like, that should have come out in January, and this movie kind of falls right in line with that. This movie is nothing but jump scares. I can't think of one moment in this film where they didn't have a loud sound effect to startle the audience. Because that's pretty much every single scare, even if it is another one of those horrible false jump scares. The music just goes really loud and then you're like, oh, it's something completely innocent. It's just the person like on the other side of the wall or something. And then you use it for the actual scary ghosts and it's not effective in the slightest. There's no effective shot like a Mike Flanagan shot like recently in Gerald's Game. There's one shot in that film sent chills down my spine, which was the hallway shot, and if you've seen Gerald's Game, you know which shot that is. No sound effect required, just a still shot, great lighting and everything, and something that's actually scary in frame. There's not a single shot in this film that feels as unique as that, which is strange considering, from what I've heard, these two directors are pretty unique in themselves. It doesn't really shine here whatsoever, aside from the fact that the set of the Winchester Mansion looked pretty good, and it's visually appealing in that sense. That's it, just scenery looked good. I will say though, another positive I had with this film is that Sarah Winchester, Helen Mirren playing her, wasn't too bad. They kind of stayed accurate as far as she believed in the ghosts, and she was very frantic in that sense, always building different, like, secret passages into the mansion, constantly reconstructing. They had that good, and the performance in that sense was strong. But the fact that they actually took the actual mental problem that Sarah Winchester had and kind of made fun of her in that sense by making this movie like, oh yeah, she was telling the truth the whole time, look at all these goofy ghosts and effects going on. And that's kind of an insult to her memory. What could have been an actually interesting story of this woman is insane and psychologically she is messed up. You could have had a psychological horror film from her perspective and explored what actually was wrong with her, but instead it was Jason Clarke plays a dude who has to show up and investigate, and Sarah Winchester is the supporting role. It's mainly about Jason Clarke, and Jason Clarke doesn't believe at first, but then, oh, jump scares happen, and now he believes. And speaking of Jason Clarke, his character is very dull. I wouldn't say unlikable. I've heard that from some other reviewers, and that's not really the case with him, because they kind of really hint at there is something about this guy that's messing him up now. So I could sense that there was more to his character, but through the performance that Clarke was giving, I was not that invested with him, which is a shame because Jason Clarke can be a great actor. Here, it was like he didn't really care that much, which is kind of like how the overall movie came off, like, we don't care. Here's just a spook house movie with an actual intriguing plot with Sarah Winchester's psyche just being thrown out the window. There's also two other characters, a mother and her child, who are pretty much kind of pointless. The mother is the niece of Sarah Winchester, so there's a familial tie, but other than that, it doesn't really feel like she needed to be there, except because her son is the plot device, sort of a film. Mainly he's just there to introduce something to the plot, and there's nothing really much else to the character. They introduced something that really didn't go anywhere at all, so he's just kind of he's literally just a walking, talking plot device. And the mother supposedly goes through an arc, but whenever they get to that conclusion, it's like, you didn't really build up to this that well at all. You just kind of dropped this on us like, oh, I guess this is what this character was supposed to learn. So what? So the characters fall flat, the direction falls flat. This is some of the most generic horror filmmaking I've seen in quite a while. And although the set design looks really well done, the cinematography is just also kind of just standard whatever. This is just like the ultimate whatever film. They took a real life person and just kind of made fun of the fact that she had a mental disease and she believed in ghosts, and they were like, oh hey, it's actually true. Based on a true story, guys. The fact that they're even trying to pass that off in the marketing, like, I know there's an actual Sarah Winchester, but the fact that you're actually trying to put out there, like, based on a true story, like all this generic horror movie stuff actually happened in real life, okay, yeah, they even had, they had one moment where they showed, like, a picture at the end credits of, like, here's the real Sarah Winchester, and, like, just stop. Just stop. The ghosts also look really bad. There's some CGI moments, but the ghosts, when they show up, are mainly, whenever they have to do something to them, practical, like makeup. It looks really corny, so in that sense, they also don't care, and it's also just typical ghost stuff you've seen in other horror films. Nothing unique or creative, just here's a guy who looks messed up because he's a ghost and he died. There's also problems with, like, the ensemble cast. Like, you have this dude who's just an over creeper. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, there's clearly something wrong with you just by the way your face looks. And then later in the movie, it turns out, oh, he's important to the plot now. And there's also a guy who works for Sarah Winchester, and his voice is literally just like this. Like, it sounded audio dubbed at first, but I was thinking, like, that can't be. That would be too obvious. Is this a real voice? If you see the movie, you'll know who I'm talking about, but his voice is just so audio dubbed feeling, but I don't know if it was audio dubbed or not, because it looked like it was actually coming out of his mouth, but it doesn't sound like it. Overall, this is a film that you don't really need to see. It's a January movie that somehow got snuck out in February. The acting is very poor except for Helen Mirren, and even then they don't really treat Sarah Winchester with the respect that maybe you should when making a movie about her. How about actually make a drama about her psyche, the horror to her mind, instead of just, the ghosts are real and she was right, everyone's wrong. Because that's actually kind of insulting to the true life, interesting person of Sarah Winchester. We could have gotten an actual good drama, and instead you gave us generic horror film. Come on. I'm gonna give Winchester a D. This movie lacks a lot of effort. This movie could have been something in the vein of The Conjuring, just as far as the fact of someone is investigating this house that could have some paranormal ties to it, but instead the execution is really poor, very lazy filmmaking. And from what I've heard, these directors are very innovative, and after I saw Jigsaw, I was thinking like, okay, well that's just a Saw movie, so maybe that's why, maybe their other two films are good. After seeing this one though, I don't know, maybe those other two movies aren't that good, who knows? I'll probably watch them someday, but hopes aren't too high. But if you've seen Winchester, leave in the comments below of what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.